All right, guys. Well, welcome. I don't know, George, you're on my front screen, so here we go.
All right, let's do it. I'm George Call, Metro Design Build Group, and we serve the Washington, D.C. metro area. Have a lot of customers throughout Northern Virginia, Potomac suburbs of Maryland, and Northwest areas of D.C.
Chris.
Chris Gaylor Design Build. We are based in Danville, California. We kind of serve our general area of about 20-ish miles, but we don't go over bridges or through tunnels.
Fair enough. Nick?
Nick Cornea with LBK Design Build. We're based in Doylestown, Pennsylvania, which is part of the greater Philadelphia area. And we also work in closer parts of New Jersey as well.
And I'm Charlie Barnes Custom Builders, and we serve Cape Cod and sometimes the islands. All right, so, I brought you guys together for a couple of reasons. First of all, I love chatting with you. You guys are, in my opinion, some of the best builders in the entire country. And getting to know you over the past few years, I've really got to understand you as people as well as your businesses. And I think that your insight to the construction industry and what we're all trying to holistically do for our clients is, pretty similar. We're all renovation contractors. I know some of us dabble some new build stuff, but generally we're remodeling houses, and it seems like we're all very design build oriented. So I wanted to kind of crack the egg from the beginning and talk about pre-construction. Are you guys all doing pre-construction with your clients? Is that the goal?
You talking about signing like design agreements and stuff like that?
Yeah. What does that look like for you?
For us, we start with an initial consultation in home, kind of go over the wants and needs of the client, walk through, see the space, and then from there we agree upon a general ballpark range that we feel will fit the overall project as discussed. And then if the client decides to move forward, we do a two-step design process. The first step being an initial discovery phase where we come out, we measure the areas that are being impacted, put it in our CAD system, send them some questionnaires to get some better ideas of kind of the designs that they want to see. And then we have them come in the office and show them in 3D view, because we found most people don't understand what a floor plan really represents. So walking them through 3D, we found is the most powerful way to show them what their project looks like.
Yeah, top down is very, very hard for people to understand, I think.
I've run into very, very few clients that are like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
Meanwhile, the guys out in the field are reading it upside down and backwards while somebody else is looking at it and flipping through pages all the time, right?
A little different.
Yeah. What about you, George? You got a two-step design process?
We do a one-step design process, but similar to Chris, we'll have one of our project consultants come out to meet with our clients and go through everything that may possibly come up with them in a project. And what I think most potential clients don't realize is what all is involved. So we try and do a very good job of explaining to them what that's going to take and the reason why we move into a design agreement, where a lot of other builders might want to sign them straight to a contract and proposal. That's really too wishy-washy for us and is somewhat misleading to clients, because without making any selections and not knowing what cabinets are going to be used and what door styles, it's not really fair for the client to just say, hey, this is my fixed price cost, without really doing any of your homework. So we take that same design agreement approach and get our design team involved and start making selections. And that way, throughout the whole process, our homeowners will know ahead of time of, hey, we're falling in this budget range that we projected. And, we'll cut some holes in the drywall and see that, yeah, we've got some plumbing or electrical in the way that's going to need moved, so that there's no surprises once construction gets underway. So we just find that to be a very good process, to be informative for clients, not lead them down a path that they can't afford, and to give them, real options that they can pick and choose from, and let them, for lack of better terms, drive the cost, and, us serve as team members to make that process come together for everybody.
Right on. What about you, Nick?
So we use a two-step design process. When we really think about it, we understand that not even us as professional builders know what things cost. So how can we expect our clients to, let alone pulling together materials, finishes, subcontractors, and so on for a project? So we tend to be very relationship focused and very proactive with communication. Our two-step process includes early on looking at a project, discussing the work scope, helping the prospect understand the potential budget ranges based on projects that were similar to size and scope that we've done in the recent past. And then once we get through that stage of things, we kind of explore multiple schematic designs, different levels of budget ranges based on those designs. And then we can then move forward into, once we have like a clear roadmap, we can move forward with our design team in selections, materials, finalizing the work scope, getting a full understanding of the full project, and then wrapping up that process with the construction agreement.
So Shep, we're gonna call you Shep from here on out, kid. I'd love you to do the football intro here. So, give yourself your name, your company, where you're out of, and then catch you up. We're just talking about, pre-construction design services. And, if that's something that you feel is important, if that's your company's jam,
Can you also explain why in the world you have 2 sets of sunglasses on?
Indoor and outdoor, man. Let's go.
It's been winter here for a little while, Chris. I'm just excited to have a little sunshine. I came fully prepared today. All right, I'm Nick Shepard. I'm with KC Home Solutions. We're a design build residential company here in Kansas City. We also, so I appreciate you guys bearing with me. Sorry I'm running late, trying to catch a flight today. But we also are very similar with Nick Cornea's process as far as we call it a 3-step process, which is phase 1 and phase 2 in design, where it almost mimics exactly what Cornea does. Our phase 1 is what we call the concept phase, where we dive in deep to trying to understand exactly what the project entails, what the customer's needs and wants are, and really hone in on a blueprint, so to speak, more of a layout fashion. Phase 2 is where we dive deep into all the selections, all the nitty-gritty cabinets, tile, paint colors, you name it. And then phase 3 is the construction. I missed the first part. I'm assuming that's kind of what you were after there, Charlie.
Yeah, what I'm trying to talk about is pre-construction agreements and services, and how important it is to have a successful project. So, if you are going to full gut reno your house, and you want to understand what it's going to cost and what the timeline's going to take and the overall process, you have to start chunking these things out. And I think it's a super important facet. And I think being aligned with your builder right out of the gate and trying to cost evaluate it is the biggest step you can take.
I feel like that's why so many people in our industry get off on the wrong foot, or clients with people in our industry, is they don't spend the time on the front end to really understand what the project entails. So what's the 2 biggest complaints that you hear in our industry? Over budget and over timeline. Well, the reason that is because nobody really understood for sure everything that the project entailed before they started construction. And that's the power of exactly what you're talking about, Charlie, on the front end of understanding everything that it entails through the design agreements and through the pre-construction process.
I think all of us have been doing this a long time. And, I even have been doing it since I was a kid, working for other people. And I can recall times being in a house that's like fully gutted and they're starting to put stuff together and they're just starting to figure out cabinets. And, you guys remember COVID. I don't know about you, but I couldn't get a cabinet for 20 weeks. And I can't imagine having somebody's house gutted, pulled apart. And then it's like, hey, let's start talking about cabinets and budget and timeline, where we're like on the freaking home stretch of the job. If you're all opened up and you're starting to get rough-ins, that's supposed to be the downhill swing. And I think that's where a lot of projects go to shit, and it gives people a bad rap, and it makes the experience awful, right? I think it's our job to like steward that and make sure that doesn't happen. At least have like a really good plan going into something. I think you can leave some things unpicked out, but there are ramifications, and a guy like you should kind of guide you through it, right?
Yeah, and I think you touched on something good there, Charlie, is that the reason that we do the design build approach is because what we tell our clients is that we really want to make sure that they're being guided in the right manner. And if you're just giving them a number, or the homeowner's chasing a number, they're never going to really get what they ultimately want. They need to pick a contractor that they feel comfortable with, has a good reputation, and can, again, be their steward through that whole process to make sure that they are thinking about everything ahead of time and making the correct selections and making all the decisions before everything starts. And everybody on both sides is doing their homework. And when you just rush into something, and or as a homeowner, if you're just chasing a number, and not dealing with somebody that's reputable and truly just trying to be their advisor, you're leading yourself up for trouble.
Yeah. So for me, you know, I know you guys all have different problems across the country. Like zoning's a huge thing here. You know, trying to understand the ramifications of adding on to a house, or what you're allowed for lot coverage, or what you're near, whether it's conservation, wetlands, you know, flood zone. That's kind of like the first valve. What do you guys deal with, you know, where you're at? What's is there civil engineering aspects or permitting that, you know, is super complicated that, you know, that's part of your motivation?
I mean, our biggest thing is setbacks. I don't have wetlands near me or flood zones, thank goodness. But it's actually quite amazing how many clients don't even realize that you can't just build up to your property lines, that there are designated distances that you have to meet. So whenever we're talking to somebody about doing an addition, we always come with that information, because there's no point in talking about stuff that we can't even do. So that's the big stuff, understanding HOAs. And then it does vary a little bit depending on which city, town, or county they're in. Because like the number one question is how much. Second question is when can you start? Third question is how long is it going to take? And knowing when you can start has a lot to do with where you're located as far as what municipality you fall under. So those are all kind of questions that are the big three when we meet, and being able to answer those is kind of key, as well as can we even do what you're asking? And if we can't, what can we do to get you what you still want? So
Chris, piggybacking on that, if I recall correctly, like where you are in California, it takes a while to get a permit. What's that like?
it depends. There's the town I'm actually in, I can get a permit in 2 to 4 weeks once submitted. Other ones, it can take 4 or 5 months. I just had one that took 1.5 years because they were next to a creek and we had to deal with additional environmental procedures. That's rare. Not a big fan of that one, but we got through it. But it really depends. Some of the places around me, they have it designated. They have to get back to you within 2 weeks.
Okay.
But some of them, they get back to you in 2 weeks and it's a question. And then you resubmit the answer, and then that kicks another 2 weeks. And so that 2 week turnaround turns into 3 months of back and forth before you get the permit. But from what I've heard, it's not as bad as other places here, but it still takes time. And people don't understand, like, okay, just because you say you want to move forward, that doesn't mean I submit for a permit next week. It's like, we still need to figure out the design, get engineering, Title 24, which is a thing in California, all kinds of stuff. It's not just simple, like, okay, we're ready, let's go. You know, it takes a little bit of time.
Sure.
So to even like expand on that point, and I don't even know if Chris realizes it's kind of leading into this, but some of that stuff's actually becoming the easy stuff, the permitting and the zoning. It's all of the things backed up to that point that Chris is making that has become the forefront and the importance. It's communicating that back to the client while they're in design, while you're trying to potentially build out a project, figuring out whether or not it's doable or not. And I mentioned earlier about being more communication and relationship focused, and I think that's a big part of it. And the other aspect to things in today's market, I think it's really a struggle for us. Is I saw a post this morning that we're at an epic all-time high for a lack of people having any interest in entering into the construction workforce, meaning carpenters, skilled tradesmen, and even people that we have in the office, estimators and so on. So some of the big struggles I see right now are adding people to your team. You know, as all of us here have growing businesses, as we grow, we have our struggles. And so, like, how do we, you know, as remodelers, relationships are huge for us because we get business that reoccurs and we get referred. You know, some of our clients, we've done 2 or 3 projects or more for them over the years. How do we deal with an incoming workforce or lack thereof while trying to give the client the experience that we expect to be delivered on our behalf out in the field? Yeah. And that's the biggest struggle I think I see right now down the pike. And
more than timing, even back to what you talked about, Charlie, is like maybe that people have picked out the cabinets, but the cabinets are at a long lead time. So even if I could start next week with a permit,
yeah,
you want me to really show up and tear apart your kitchen and then wait 3 to 4 weeks for your cabinets to show up? It's a lot. And kind of like what Nick and George and Shep have all said, it's communication and setting the expectation up front. not just about price, but setting this is what the process is. You've never gone through this. You're trusting us to guide you through this because we've done this before. We're really good at what we do, and we need to build this trust so that you understand what we say is really what's going to happen. And I'm not going to tell you what you want to hear. I'm going to tell you the reasonable expectations so that you're not disappointed and that you're actually happy at the end.
Yeah. And I think that setting up maybe concessions from the wish list, the initial lead intake is important too. Being that guide and that steward through the project. I find myself a lot of times when people want to do a project, one of the first phone calls I make is to my civil engineer, and you sure as hell get a consulting bill after the fact, but is this thing even feasible? We have a watershed problem where we are, and a local town here has set the cap on the sewer limit. So, originally this was proposed that you could, add on to your house, do increased bedrooms, and, stay away from the watershed with the nitrates and all this stuff. And now it's becoming somewhat of a challenge to give people what they want in some of these aging homes, and they're no longer suitable for a family or a summer house. And it's the lion's share of, is this feasible? Can we put this thing here? Does it fit in a lot? Are we away from the side yards? Are we, can this even start before we start the box? And it's not something you can just guess on. At least I don't think so. What about you, Nick? Shep, you got any constraints that really are at the forefront of your process?
Is we don't fight. We have nothing but space here in the Midwest, right? So there's lots of room to do things that we want to do. The biggest challenge for us is every single city, or if it's not a part of a city, it's a part of a county, is its own jurisdiction. So we're constantly learning how one city wants us to submit things, what they want us to submit, the next city, what they expect. And they don't really reciprocate with each other. So it's a constant challenge when we work in so many different cities in an area, trying to learn how to comply with whatever regulation they have. So, really that's the biggest challenge. We don't deal necessarily with, a lot of historical homes here. There are some, but not as many as on the coasts. It's mainly just the regulation that I think we all face is our biggest challenge.
So do you guys feel like, I don't know, I'm sure you have these projects that make their way into your offices where people are trying to, manage this themselves. Is that dangerous? Like if you're a homeowner and you're like, hey, I'm going to go and try to track down all these plans, get these engineering done, get plans made from A, B, and C. Like, what's your take on that?
That's an immediate red flag for us. We established that early on with prospects, and if it's a deal breaker for them, they want to get their own. My cousin's an electrician. I already got an architect. We tend to push those prospects away to say, hey, thanks for thinking of us. We really appreciate it, but we're probably not a good fit for you. But the ultimate underlying reason is, what we do, our careers, it's what we've invested in our whole lives in. It's our experience, it's our relationships, it's our knowledge. It's almost like what makes a homeowner, a general homeowner, think they can do it better than we can. They can't. So in my opinion, if a client can't hand us over the project and let us do what we do and step out of the way, then we generally don't want to work with them.
That's a mindset is what it's getting at. If the homeowner has the mindset of we're not valuable and they don't see a service to us, that kind of is why you're seeing that as a red flag.
Most of our clients, when we sign a contract with them or we enter into design and we ask them, hey, why did you hire us? Most of them are working professionals, and their attitude is like, look, I have to do this project. I'm busy. I got work. I got life. I got kids. I'll go do what I do to make money to pay you to do this, and you make this go away for us.
So when you go in and pull a permit here, if you're pulling a permit as an owner builder, there's additional areas you need to sign that state you understand that this is not a good idea. You are accepting a lot of liability, and they have flyers that they hand out to you saying, and this is the building departments. This isn't me. This is the building department is trying to dissuade you from being your own builder.
Slap of the hand, stop that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's a lot. People don't understand. I have liability insurance. You don't.
Yeah.
I have workers' comp. You don't.
So
someone gets hurt, who are they coming for?
I got a phone call the other day, and I spent some time on, talking about the project and everything. And this person had a set of plans that they were going to share with me. And, they found out their handyman guy that was going to do this deck project no longer had a license or comp or, any of these huge things that you should have as a homeowner. And, I started looking at the set of plans, and the house didn't match the pictures, and the deck elevation was weird. And, it was kind of a disaster. And like trying to go back and be like, hey, listen, you might have done this online, spent a couple $1,000s. And, ultimately when we get to the point, if this project goes to try to get a permit, I can't use this. Like we have to do this all over again. And, there's certain things that the building inspector is going to want to see, as well as the guys building the deck. And, trying to jump the shark in that capacity is, it's a huge time suck. And to, your guys' point before, the people that value what we're doing they're busy. They either own a business, they're upper level management, and they're like, hey, you put together the product that we want and you're the professional doing it. It's like hiring an electrician, right? Like I'm not wiring a box. That's wild.
I think to elaborate on what you said, Chris, is that the municipalities around here have us do the same thing for homeowners. Homeowners have to sign off on these waivers, but what other homeowners don't realize too, and I've heard cases of where issues have gone wrong and then their insurance company drops in. So because a homeowner is trying to venture out and do something on their own, imagine losing your home insurance and not having somebody insure your home because you're doing reckless things within your own home.
Have you guys, like back in the day when you actually got to go into the towns and counties to submit for permits, have you ever been there when a poor homeowner got sent down there by their architect or builder to try and pull the permit themselves?
No.
And you feel so bad for them because they're so lost.
It's so bad.
It's like, why would you do this to this poor person?
In the local town here, you used to have to take your permit pack in between all of the departments yourself and get them signed off individually. And it was like the window was right next to the other one. And like 9 out of 10 of those people would not make it to window 2. It was just absolutely devastating. I'm
trying to think of another industry where the consumer could partner with whoever is providing the service. I can't imagine like going to a restaurant and going back and helping them put together my hamburger, or going back to the wait staff and carrying it out myself, or making my own drink. I'm not sure why people think that that's an option in our industry, especially when this industry, there's so many moving parts. There's a lot of danger potentially if things aren't done safely. I can't imagine why somebody would want to interject and try to complicate an already proven process.
Yeah. Or like
because they don't understand.
Or have your chair rail crash into a drawer when you go to open it in your bathroom or something wild.
Most of us have figured it out to this point mostly through pain. We've made all the mistakes for them. It's like we've done this already for you. Just now let us take care of it for you.
Yeah.
I know you guys are somewhat different, but like in my market, architecturally driven work's becoming, has always been a very big player. And I felt in the past couple of years, the shift has been more alignment with the builder out of the gate, and, more of interviewing the person you want to work with and getting them on board, where before it used to be somewhat of a pricing exercise. And if you don't get into that second phase of pricing or design, like we're all talking about, selections, it's still just tier 1 pricing, right? Like, this is the basic format of this building. This is what it kind of looks like, but all the real tangible things aren't integrated yet. So it's still kind of a base level, right?
I love using the illustration of a red car.
Yeah.
At that point you're talking about a red car, but you don't know what you're putting in the car. Does it have 2 sunroofs? How big's the screen? Has it got a V12? Is it an electric car? Until you start really turning all those nuts and bolts and understanding every little detail of it, you're only talking about a tier. You're getting a stuff of projects you had to do before.
Yeah.
All right. Let's talk about this. Let's design fees. So, what does it look like for you guys across the US for your design package? And, I guess in a percent value base, like if you're going to do a project that's, call it 800 grand worth of renovations, are you guys a flat fee? Do you guys base your pricing for design work on a percentage value of that? How do you kind of scramble that egg?
We do 8% generally in total for design of total budget until we hit a certain revenue level. Usually once we're getting over 750,000, we don't need 8% of that. It's just too much in for design. So we always do 2% upfront initially of the project budget that's discussed. And then when we go into phase two, we typically do 6, but if we see the project's going to be $1 million plus, I may not need $60,000 to finish off drawings between us, our architect, and so on. So, but just as a general flat statement, we charge about 8% across the board.
We do the exact same percentages with a revenue cap. In addition to, if there's no engineering needed, we may reduce the secondary fee as well, dependent.
Sure.
Very similar as well. We're in the 5 to 6% range of the total estimated construction cost. And as Nick mentioned, that the larger the project gets, we don't necessarily need as much for that. So it might dwindle down a little bit, but yeah, certainly things like engineers, the architects that may need to be involved, and how much perceived design time all weigh into that.
It's really interesting to hear that. We're 6 to 8% as well. Typically it's 8% up to a large volume, which is somewhere in the $1 million range. And then it starts tapering down into the 6. As you mentioned, there's some efficiencies there as the project scales that enables the designers to duplicate some things, which reduces time a bit. But yeah, we're 6 to 8%. Usually 8% is the rule.
We're structured very similar. We're 3 and 3, and then we tally up the last 2 when we get towards construction contract. Once we figured out the budget with allowances for finishes, and then we reset the value based on that last 2%. The caveat, obviously, is if there's any special permitting or zoning issues or anything like that that's going to need civil engineering at town hall or an architect at town hall. All right, let's talk about the good, the bad, and the ugly. When have you seen something go to shit for not doing these steps? Have you witnessed it? Have you refined your process because of it? Like, what's your personal experience that's given you this tuition that you now know that this is part of your deal?
I can start off. No, I mean, obviously there's been lots of struggles and battles, but I think ultimately for us, switching to the design build format and putting more effort in the front end has really helped us feel like we're a partner and we're representing and a good steward of our clients' time and money and effort and energy. Before we did that, we would try to just estimate projects, use a lot of allowances, make a lot of assumptions. And our assumptions were apparently never on the same page as what the client's assumptions were of the assumptions we were making. And you know what they say about assumptions. And so
everybody's an asshole.
Everybody. Yep. Especially us. So switching to the design build process is really been a light bulb for us. I mean, the clients are enjoying the process. Everybody goes into it fully understanding the scope of work, the detail that is going in. They understand what was bid for. They understand what they're getting. And then we're just able to do it. So it's so much easier to execute. Back to your original point about waiting on cabinets. When you've ordered your cabinets way early in the project, or even if you can before you start, you're never waiting on anything. So it really minimizes the time and the duration in construction because of all the work you put on the front end. It's really hard to make a lot of decisions for people when they're in turmoil and living through some chaos or this, the intrusiveness of the project. So doing all that on the front end, it's really just created a good partnership between us and the clients.
Yeah, to elaborate on that, I'll kind of go through a recent scenario that I went to. I looked at a project for a friend that was a whole first floor remodel, redo the kitchen, tear down a wall between the kitchen and the dining room, replace all the flooring, which led to, redoing railings and steps. And in his mind, he wanted to do the project for $175,000. I very quickly explained to him that typically projects like that for us range anywhere from $240,000 to $300,000 and more, depending on your selections. So I had a very quick conversation with him of, hey, your cabinets might be $45,000, your countertops might be $15,000, and your hardwood might be $30,000. And we very quickly got to $140,000 in materials of just selectables before we even touched anything. So again, kind of like what Nick was saying, it's being your trusted advisor to help you understand and walk you through. And I said, so now can you understand why we're potentially in the $275,000 range? And he said, yes. And I said, now, even on my end, a $45,000 cabinet range is typical for this project. But depending on what you pick, you could spring that up to $60,000 if you're doing inset cabinet doors and, have fancy finishes and tall utility cabinets. But conversely, if you really want to be at $175,000, I could probably sell you some cabinets for $25,000, but you're going to hate it. And it's not going to, your home's not going to sell. So you got to bid yourself and be true against contractors that are going to give you $175,000 number that you might want to hear, but you're not getting what you want. And it's my job to advise you, to tell you what it is that you want and what your expectations should be and what is reality. So that again is, I think, what all of us as firms do, as design build firms, is to give you the advice that is what you ultimately are looking for, and to steer you in the right direction and help guide you in making those decisions of, yes, I'll spend $45,000 on cabinets, or no, I'm okay spending 60 and I'll cut it somewhere else. I might pick a little bit cheaper countertop. And those are the things we try and iron out ahead of time as part of the design build process.
Yep.
Give you a more a different one, maybe a more unique one that happened not too long ago. So for the last year or so, Charlie, we've been using one of those AI voice recorders that transcribes it into text. And then and it's a sales focused one, so we mostly use it for sales. So it's like
a note keeper.
Yeah, like a note keeper. And it takes bookmarks and makes summaries. And as a sales coach, you can go in there and look at that, look in there and make sure your sales reps are doing the right things, saying the right things, right? So in this case, we had but by the way, so we not only use it for sales training, but we also use it as, we call it digital receipts of conversations, right? So it was like 4 months ago, our sales rep had a pre-qualifying phone call with a prospect, reviewed the budget for an interior remodel. Based on that conversation, everything was great. He went out to the home, continued the conversation. We got a design agreement with a budget range in mind. And as things were wrapping up, the homeowner had mentioned, I might also want to do the windows and doors, like the whole house. And then our rep said, okay, well, we'll look into that. You'll have to give us some more info at that. Maybe we'll review at the design budget review meeting. Fast forward 3 weeks from that point, they come in for a design budget review meeting. They review the proposed schematic drawings, and we put up the budget there, which was what was on target. And the homeowner said, hey, this includes the windows and doors too. And then we said, well, no, the doors and windows package is going to be like another $35,000. And he kind of like flipped his lid a little bit and got all upset at us. Well, here we went back into our recordings and we found it there, and we were like, no, you see right here, you added it in, and we told you this was the initial budget and that was going to be an additional cost. And then he had to back out of that statement and say, oh yeah, I was wrong. But that's one of those scenarios where the conversation could have turned totally sour. We would have lost the project, lost the client. But because we had, that was something that we learned out of pain. But we had these digital recordings, and it kind of saved our ass a little bit. And every once in a while you come across a difficult client. We feel like those conversations being tracked keeps them accountable.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've been around a long time. We've started where our estimates were free. And the issue with estimating for free is you're rushing to get the estimate in, so you make mistakes. To then we charged, but we weren't charging enough. So I ran into a similar issue. And then we went with allowances. And just like Shep said, our expectations are different than their expectations. And now they're mad at us. So we kind of have landed on this 2-step design process is the best process we can supply for our clients. And it's like Courtney said, they're benefiting from all the years of mistakes we've made. And through all those mistakes, you can see we all 5 of us do it the same way. We all understand this is the best way to help our clients. It's not just because it is easier, because in a lot of ways it's not. But it is the best way to get the clients all the information up front so they can make an educated decision and get what they're expecting, and not just throw it together as quickly as we can and say, I hope this works. So,
yeah, and I think that getting it out of the way is, it's multi-purpose, right? Like, let's get all these conversations done, figure it out, and then enjoy the process of construction. Like, all of the angst and the stress and everything leading up to knowing what your project looks like and knowing what the ticket is going to be, to meld that into like having your house ripped apart and all the sheetrock off and it looks like shit and there's 500 people there and it's noisy. Like, it's it's too much. It's not fair to anybody, right? That's where you just compound issues that aren't even issues, right?
And clients never believe that the process, it can be fun.
Yeah.
If you actually trust us and let us do what we've come up with over all these years, it's enjoyable for you. If we half-ass it, it's going to suck the whole time.
You want to show up to your house and the plumbers be there jamming out to some, 90s rock, and you're like, hey, what's up?
Smoking in your kitchen.
Yeah, what's up, Steve? You know what I mean? Like, you don't want to be there and be like, what didn't I think about, or what did the builder miss? It's it's a time to enjoy.
And I think one thing that, for whatever reason in our industry, people don't realize is that you do get what you pay for. I think too many homeowners think that anybody can swing a hammer, anybody can lay a floor, anybody can knock down this wall, and they don't realize all the knowledge and stuff that goes behind getting to those decisions and, properly planning something ahead of time. So it definitely is an industry where you get what you pay for. And I feel like most homeowners don't see that. And that's unfortunate. And that's why, again, we try and weed out clients that are the right fit for us. And kind of like we all said, it's somebody that trusts us to turn the whole process over to us so that we can go from there.
Shep, where the hell are you flying to, man?
Orlando.
Oh yeah,
No, I'm not going for the builder show. My daughter's got a softball deal. Her whole club's meeting down there for the weekend. So,
what's your walkout song for for the podcast here, Bob?
She's right here. We can ask her.
You guys gonna share? You guys have the same walkout song? What do we got?
No, but I am interested. Your plumbers listen to 90 rock. Mine are more like Adele or Mariah Carey or something.
I just had this conversation with a customer the other day, and we were talking about subcontractors. And I'm unfortunately, like, my first whole round of subcontractors are all dead now because they were old as hell when I started doing it. And now they're still old as hell. And I don't think they're listening to Adele because they're like, grown men. We listen to it a little on the side maybe, but it's they're still in that era, man. Lots of creaky knees.
We don't even let them listen to music on site.
Oh man.
Oh, that's brutal.
I still live on site here and there, and I've been trying to tend to my ears and wear the headphones, but first thing out of the trailer in the morning's got to be the radio, or you're getting yelled at by me. I don't know.
First thing out, last thing in.
That's it. Got to have the jams. Yeah. All right. Well, I don't know. I think we kind of cracked this egg a little bit. What do you guys think? Anything else you want to talk about?
I think we covered that aspect of our businesses and industry pretty well, actually.
Cool.
It's pretty interesting seeing how aligned we all are across. I mean, we're coast to coast, right? I mean, East Coast to West Coast, and some in the middle here. So,
what do they say? Trust the process?
Trust the process.
Yeah, I think for this podcast, are we trying to get this more homeowner geared or a little bit to, other contractors as well? Because I feel like sometimes we were answering questions geared towards a homeowner, but sometimes geared towards a fellow contractor.
Yeah, great question. I think that, it should be client facing, but also educational against your peers, right? I don't think there's any big secrets that we're laying out here. I do want, the consumer to understand what the norm should be and how it looks like as a journey from start to finish build through, a few different points of view.
And if we can help other contractors improve the view of the construction industry, I'd be all for it, because we all combat that negative view when we meet with people the first time of change orders and not showing up and all that fun stuff. That I'd love it if that just went away.
Yeah. Right. I think that the younger generation is a little bit more open about, what everybody's doing than it was in the past. There's no huge, big secrets. And I think that we all understand that you have to run a business and it has to be successful to create a product. And, we all work in similar areas, and you share subs, you share material vendors. Like, at the end of the day, it's going to cost pretty damn close to what it costs. And having the right dude take you through it is really what matters, with the right people, right? Like, you can be the right dude, but if your people can't put it together, shame on you. I don't know.
No doubt.